I'm going to share the right now. Okay. And here. Okay, so thank you very much for receiving me. I'm really glad, and I hope I will be able to join other talks in the future of the water governance group. So today I would like to share some thoughts about a research project I've been involved into since the beginning of the year in the area of the Caoni River in Ecuador. Then I'm going to show some maps. And I was trying to think about like an approach for the presentation, and I thought it would be nice like to link the issue of water with the issue of biodiversity conservation, trying to see the synergies, because actually like the main focus of the project is on species of amphibians conservation in the area. But it's not the only one focus. Obviously, like to work with local people, it's really important like to show the different like connections we have around the river, the species, human health, different practices. So everything is really is highly connected, no? And so, as some of you know, I'm working a lot on transdisciplinary research. So that's why I would like also to highlight what we are doing regarding participatory tools around conservation in the area. As I said, like trying to be connected with local people, initiatives and needs, so that the conservation project makes sense for people, is accepted, and we can move forward with it. So a bit of context. So initially, this is not a project coming from the university or academia. It's a project coming from like some fears and needs of local people living in the Caoni River. So basically, what you can see over there in the picture is like just a really particular like aspect of contamination, but actually it's really broad, no? So people are feeling that the river is highly contaminated because of different aspects we're going to see later, but basically around wastewater discharges, tourism activities, a boom of urbanization also in the area, also pesticides and agricultural practices. And so as we had like some other projects in the region, like people in the county came to visit us, and they said, could we work with academia and my university, which is the University San Francisco of Quito, to do something? Because actually we know the river is contaminated, but we don't have proof. We don't have like scientific evidence, so like nobody is hearing us. And so that's why like the start, let's say, of the whole project, it's around this campaign and social collective called Salvemos el Caoni, Saving the Caoni. And we also like started working with a local digital magazine called Noroccidente, like as a really important like stakeholder in the region. So where are we located? No, so here is the map of Ecuador. So basically, the Choco Andino region, it's like a mega biodiverse region. No, actually, the Choco Andino, it's like in the northwest of Quito, the capital city. No, and it's recognized from 2018 as a biosphere reserve by UNESCO. No. And so you see here in the map, like the delimitation of the biosphere reserve. And the Caoni River, it's kind of outside of it. It's really on the left part of the map, where you can read San Miguel de los Bancos, Pedro Vicente Maldonado, and beyond we have Puerto Quito. So it's like at at the frontier, at the border of the biosphere reserve. So actually they suffer also from a kind of invisibility, because like the other like towns and communities inside the biosphere reserve, they have received like more attention. But the people living in the Caoni at the border of the biosphere reserve, they are kind of invisible. They don't have many projects or alliances, no? But anyway, like in general, the biosphere reserve, so you might know that this is like a recognition which is not like strict conservation. So in a biosphere reserve, you can do like sustainable activities. You shouldn't do like unsustainable activities, but it's not so easy. Like in the reserve, we have mining concessions and threat. We have threats from building new hydroelectric dams. We have a lot of contamination. We have garbage and contamination from Quito. We have like deforestation and climate change impact. So it's really a critical like area for conservation, no? So then we arrive towards the participatory research project I'm part of since the beginning of the year. So maybe you know about the Critical Ecosystem Partnership Fund. So it's the organization like funding our project. They are mainly based in the United States, and they tend to have like, let's say, a more classical conservation approach. And as I said, and then I'm going to comment more on that, but from the university, we try to have a more participatory approach because we consider that it's really more effective and sustainable in the long term, no? So what are the different objectives and activities of the project? So we are doing participatory assessment of amphibian species and water quality. So then I'm going to comment a bit more on that, but the participatory approach means that local people are joining the monitoring activities so that they gain capacities and they can replicate what they've learned in the future, no? We are developing conservation mechanisms in collaboration with local stakeholders, and we are strengthening community governance of the river. So basically, we are organizing like different multi-stakeholder spaces and platforms because actually we don't have any, no? We have like on one side civil society, on the other side public actors, public authorities, on the other side academia. But so far in the county, we didn't have any space like joining the different kind of actors to discuss and see like the best conservation mechanisms for the area. So here, like a bit about the conceptual approaches we manage in the project. So recently, I've been working a lot on rivers, actually, in Ecuador, not only the Caoni River, but also some rivers in Quito, the San Pedro River, the Machangara River. They are all in a really critical state of contamination, no? And there is this concept really interesting called riverhood. And basically, it makes like it's really connected to sisterhood, for example, not to other like really non-concept, but they like join river with hood, like riverhood. And it means like taking back the relationship between bodies, territories, knowledge, basically between people and their rivers. Because I don't know how it is in your places where you are living, but in Ecuador, there is a huge disconnection between people and rivers, especially in Quito and around Quito, no? Like rivers are really invisible. We don't care about river. We don't understand their importance. And actually they are just like receiving trash. And so it's really critical like to take back this riverhood, this connection. And something else about riverhood, I'm going to comment more later, is about the need to recognize and enforce river personhood and rights. So you might know that in Ecuador, we have a constitution recognizing the rights of nature and including the rights of rivers. So then I'm going to comment more on what we are doing with the Caoni River. And then like the methodological approach is around transdisciplinary and decolonial research. So transdisciplinary, as you understood from the beginning, no? Meaning that like local actors are involved from the beginning. Actually, the project comes from their needs and fears and them asking the academia to work with them. So it's not a project like designed from the academia to go to the territory. This is really something important. Actually, it has been really challenging because initially, and I'm going to comment more on that then, but people in the area, they didn't want to work with species, with endangered species. They didn't see the interest of that. But the one funding us from the Critical Ecosystem Fund Partnership, they do want to fund projects protecting endangered species. So then we have like to find a match between the requirements of the international cooperation and the needs of local people. And so sometimes transdisciplinary research, it sounds really nice, but it's challenging to implement most of the time. But anyway, I do agree that it's really important for learning, trust, and participation in commons, co-management, collective action. And decolonial research, it would be like trying to acknowledge the region-specific history, culture, and ethnic diversity. In the Caoni River, most of people are mestizos. They are like rural communities, or they are like coming from outside in the city also most of the time. So they don't have like an historical connection to the territory. They came like recently in the territory. But we do have some more historical communities and Afro-descendant communities around Puerto Quito. And for example, they have like a stronger connection with the area because they have been there like for a longer time. So this is really important to consider. And as I said before, so I've put it this graph because like, as I said regarding the title, so in the presentation, I would like to focus on the different nexus and connection between water and biodiversity. And actually in the Caoni, we are going to find most of those issues present over there, like health, water, food, biodiversity, climate, for example. Well, so this is like the closer map to the Caoni River. It's a bit like, it's not so clear. I'm sorry for that, but I think we can see it. So basically those blue spots, they are the places where we did the participatory water quality monitoring. So from the top of the hydric basin, so here at the right side, it's written San Miguel de los Bancos. So there we have like the start of the river basin of the Caoni River. And then we go through this like place at the center of the map where you can see like this red area. This is a KBA, a key biodiversity area. So actually it's the main priority for the ones funding our project. It's like located in this red area where we are supposed to find like those endangered species, no? And then we go towards the end of the river basin, towards Puerto Quito. So I would like to comment on a few activities we did, and then coming towards like some more general discussions. So this is one example of what we mean by participatory conservation tools. So one activity we had with local actors is community-based participatory mapping, or we call it also talking maps. So it's exactly what you see here in the picture. So basically we printed maps of the river basin, and we asked participants to identify in the map the sites like highly polluted, the activities which are incompatible or compatible with river conservation, and the priority conservation zones. And so basically you see the green spots are the conservation places. The yellow one are the compatible activities, like sustainable activities. The orange one are incompatible activities, and red ones are like really critical polluted sites. And there we have like the results, because we had like 3 different groups. So this is like a consolidated map of the 3 groups. And it's really interesting because beyond like coming like as, let's say, from academia, as experts, like the ones who really know their territories are the ones living over there. So what you can see in the map is really useful, actually, because it's like a diagnostic of what's happening in the territory, where we should focus and have some priorities. And basically, like the different places, they, for example, as I said at the beginning, no, where we have like green places, basically we have like private reserves for conservation. We have like some forests, for example. The yellow one, they are mainly connected, for example, to organic cacao production, for example. The orange one, it's mainly connected to palm, African palm production and monocultures. And the red one, they are really associated with discharges from the cities, towards the river. So basically, we have like a water treatment plant in Puerto Quito, but we don't have like any treatment from Los Bancos, Pedro Vicente, and so everything is going to the river, basically. So it's really contaminated. This is like an infography we did with a student who participated into the project. So I'm sorry, it's in Spanish, but it's just to show you. So this is like, it's a focus on Puerto Quito, the last town of the river basin, no? And then we can see like before, like the town it's in gray. We have like those urbanization, like urban growing. We have like different fields, like agricultural production using a lot of chemicals. And then, for example, where we can see like this gray area, we see that there is like a beach, no? And like a lot of people are bathing into the river in this place, but it's highly contaminated. So basically they are like having bath. But before, we can see that there are all the discharges from the urban places and the chemicals, and then people are going to take a bath into the river, no? Well, on the other side, so we worked a lot with amphibian monitoring, and again with a participatory approach. So a lot of people joined the monitoring activities. To know more about it, we had like some workshops also, like to help people identify the different amphibians. And this is the map of the sites of monitoring of amphibians. So we have kind of a lot also. And so these are like some of the species we found. So I'm not going to comment a lot on that, because actually it's not like my expertise in the project. But something interesting they told us is that like the type of amphibian species you find tells you a lot on the situation of the river. For example, some amphibians are living actually in highly contaminated waters. So you can find species, but they can like give you an indication of the state of contamination of the river. On the other side, you can find like some species are really sensitive to contamination. So in some places you can't find them if the river is really contaminated, for example. And something really key we found in this aspect, it's like you can see over there in the left side. So the ideal like habitat for amphibians would be like to have connected forests, but actually in the Caoni, it's highly fragmented. So we have like small places of forests, really, really fragmented without any connection between them. And so amphibians like, tend to reproduce themselves between them, and then they die basically. No, so it's really interesting because we started talking with local people, and for example, some schools do have like places of forest in their schools, and they really care about those forests, but actually they don't know what to do. They don't know, okay, actually they don't know what types of species they have, and they don't know how to conserve them. So that actually, like from the beginning of the project, we saw like a lot of interest of people like to join and learn more about what they can do about it. Then we worked a lot on conservation mechanism, as I was saying at the beginning. So we try to have this participatory conservation approach. So always like asking people about their preferences, no? So again, it's in Spanish, but I'm going to comment on it. So basically on the left side, like we asked people about their priorities. So what are the priorities about conserving the Caoni River? And the top two priorities were water quality and biodiversity. So that's why, again, the nexus I was talking about at the beginning. No? And then regarding those priorities, we asked, okay, so considering the different conservation mechanisms we have in Ecuador, what would be, according to you, the most appropriate mechanisms to use in the Caoni? And the top one, it's the rights of nature, protection action. So it's really interesting. I think it's because of the context. Right now, like some rivers in Ecuador are winning trials to have their rights recognized. So that's why like other people and other rivers, other people living in other rivers, they are seeing the interest of going towards like tribunals, because they think that this is like the top mechanism, like to put pressure on authorities so that they do something. The second like mechanism, it's a commonwealth, a mancomunidad. It's like different like municipalities coming together to take action. And as you saw, no, in the county, we have three main municipalities, Los Bancos, Pedro Vicente, and Puerto Quito, and they have a mancomunidad, they have a commonwealth, but it's not active. Basically, they are not doing anything. So people are saying we would like the commonwealth to be active, but maybe to have that, we need to go to the tribunal to put pressure over the public authorities. So a bit more about like those rights of nature. So as I told to you, no, people are gaining interest into those mechanisms because of other rivers like winning like trials in the tribunal. So this is the case of the Machanga River. So you see in the picture over there. So basically, like the lawyers of the case, they went to the court, and they wanted like to bring to the court the river. So they say, okay, let's put the river, the Machangara River, into this bottle, so that like everybody and the judges can see how contaminated is the river, and to give like a voice to the river and to the trial. So that's why they brought this bottle representing the river into the trial, no? And they were successful. So right now, like it's been some months that like the municipality of Quito in particular, like they are like guilty, let's say, about the contamination of the river, and they should adopt some different measures. No, so here we're talking about, like, for example, the right of the river to live, to exist, to flow, to maintain its identity, to play its role. There are also a few other rights considered into this case, not the right to water, the right to a healthy environment and sanitation and health, and the right to the city. So we started this work with people in the Caoni. So we used another like participatory mapping tool, which is contour mapping or social cartography, depends, we call it in different ways. And so we asked people like to draw their river and write like what are the key functions and rights of the rivers that have been violated, no? So that then we can like start writing the protection action and like suggesting some like remediation and some solutions, no? So some final reflections about all of those activities we had. So in the Caoni, the most important rights and functions of the river that have been identified are the ecological role and biodiversity, the right to be free from human pollution, to engage in sustainable activity, have riparian forests, because actually in Ecuador we have a law which prohibits having like unsustainable activities like close to the river. We should maintain riparian forests, but it's not happening. Actually, we have a lot of deforestation just close to the river. We talked about recovering the connection and communication between river and its population. So it's actually connected to this concept of riverhood, no? So just as in Quito, in the Caoni, there is also a disconnection, unless like the river is really big, it's really visible in the Caoni. And as I said, like people are bathing into the river. But there is a disconnection, meaning that there is like a lack of awareness of its level of contamination, actually. And the last point is like we should replicate good practices between the different like towns, no, and communities, because actually we do have like good practices, but they are really particular. At the beginning, we were talking about scaling up, no, and some practices. So we do have like some good practices to replicate in the area about agroecological schools, organic cacao production, for example. And just like a few last reflections, and then we can open the discussion. So people agree on the importance of promoting citizen action to make pressure on decision makers, no? So this is really key also in transdisciplinary research in our project, meaning that at the end, like the project, it's gonna end next January. So we don't know if we're gonna have like new funding to keep going on with the project. So it's really important that we have consolidated citizen groups and civil society organizations in the territory so that they can keep fighting, no, for the rights of the river and the activities. Well, for the protection action, I already commented on that. But what I would like to say is that like all of those actions are interconnected. Like people recognize that it's the protection action would be the best like conservation mechanism, but actually it takes a lot of time, like to go to the court and win the protection action for the Caoni River. At least it can last 2 years maybe. So what are we going to do during those 2 years? Meantime, like we fight for into the court, we need to do something else. So we should have like different interconnected activities. Like, well, like people, as I said before, like in citizen action, they have like a lot of good initiatives. For example, in past June, they organized like a kayak action, like to defend the river, a bicycling tour also around the river. So like to raise awareness using like some entertaining activities, let's say, to do it. And yes, something interesting maybe to end with that is that people like recognize the role of academia in all of that. Obviously, we come like to respond to local needs and to work with people, and people also recognize, as I said just at the beginning, no, so that they need like scientific evidence, because if they go to the different municipalities or the Ministry of Environment without like any scientific data, it's really hard for them like to get attention. So, but it's not just about scientific production, as I showed during the presentation. Like it's a combination of different knowledge production, no? And what is next? So in the next months, as I said, no, the project it's meant to end in next January, but we have like a few activities. We are collaborating with a local writing contest for young and child and kids in the area, focused on the guardians of the Caoni. Also, in next October and November, we will gonna have the Festival of the Chocondino. We try to be there each year because like it's a place where a lot of people are going. And so it's a nice place to make some sensibilization, awareness activities. And we're going to try also to work closer with local public authorities to see what kind of conservation mechanisms we can like co-create also with them. And I thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion.